Julian Assange has been in captivity for or he's been held, hostage for 10 years, I think, about 10 years. And he's been psychologically tortured and perhaps physically tortured. We don't know. No one is calling this out. No major media that I've seen has really been defending Julian Assange, and we know all the reasons for that. We've listed them in this program already. Is there any hope for Julian Assange? Is there any way that he's released, or has he been so broken at this point that, even if he was released, it's like they've kind of accomplished what they were looking to do?
I don't know for sure. The last time I saw Julian was in 2018 or 2019 when I went to London and spent 3 straight days with him in the embassy. And he, at that time, was very lucid, very cogent, like in good spirits. But that was before he was in prison. He was still at the embassy, although he was looking very pallid. I mean, he hasn't been outside in 10 years, right? Like even prisoners in horrible American jails get to walk around in the sun for like a half an hour a day. Julian he literally hasn't touched the sun or seen the sun in 10 years. He probably now has in prison, maybe a little bit, but when he was at the embassy, he was confined to a room and a half, almost for a full decade. So his health was suffering. He couldn't exercise. He had no sun, which is a necessity. The thing that angers me the most about the whole situation is, as much as the media hates me, when I was doing the Snowden reporting, like in 2013 and 2014, and the Obama administration was getting very threatening, I couldn't leave Brazil for like a year. Most of the media was on my side and like defended me. Why? Because I had one foot in their world, right? Like I was at The Guardian, one of the oldest newspapers in the West. And then in 2019 and 2020, when I did this investigative reporting in Brazil that culminated in the indictment by the Brazilian government of me, the attempt to criminally prosecute me, as Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, had threatened to do for months, most of the American media, almost all of the American media, in fact, manifested in my defense. Like the New York Times published editorials, denouncing it. With Julian, it's completely different because he's never really had even one foot in that media clique. And they spent 5 years flamboyantly marching around, like prancing around as defenders of press freedom because Trump would like say some juvenile insult about Jim Acosta or post some like mean thing about Chuck Todd or Wolf Blitzer, and they would act like the First Amendment was imperiled. And here you have an actual grave threat to press freedom. The indictment that has been unsealed that the Biden administration is now pursuing, if it succeeds, it will criminalize investigative journalism, the relationship that, in fact, when the Bolsonaro government tried to criminally prosecute me in 2020, they used that as their model. The theory that the U.S. government is using against Assange is the one that the far-right government in Brazil tried to use against me, saying that my relationship with my source had crossed a line from passive receipt of information into an active role in the conspiracy to steal the information that I was reporting, which is exactly what they're using against Assange. So just out of self-interest, you would think American journalists who pretended for 5 years to be so devoted to defending press freedom, when it came to mean tweets about like blown dry CNN douchebags, would be protesting and demanding Biden drop the prosecution. But they're not. They either don't know about it, they don't care about it, or they're cheering it because they're infantile. And what it really is about, Tim, is just, it's pure professional jealousy. Julian Assange has broken more big stories in the last decade than all of those corporate media drones combined.
Right.
So he is what they pretend to be. And his existence kind of holds up a mirror showing what they really are. Like, why isn't the CIA and the FBI and the NSA devoted to imprisoning like Wolf Blitzer and Jim Acosta or like New York Times reporters? It's because they're not fucking threats to anybody.
Right.
They're servants. So the fact that they're doing it to Julian demonstrates who the real danger is.